If you walked away from your business for 2 years, would it be stronger when you return? That's the question that inspired generations of founders to build something that lasts. Running a business takes more than hustle. It takes a leadership team that anticipates what's next. A system that's well-oiled, self-correcting, and capable of growing beyond the founder. CBC Talks is about building businesses that don't just survive, but thrive.
My guest today is Jeff Radichel, the founder of TNS, the Next Step Consulting, a firm known for bridging the gap between performance and purpose in sales organizations. What makes TNS stand out isn't their ability to help companies find talent. It's their commitment to helping people and teams make the right next step. Whether you're a business owner trying to build a sales team that sticks or a sales professional figuring out where you actually fit, Jeff's work is about clarity, alignment, and long-term traction. Jeff, what did I leave out in that?
You know, when I think about sales, we talked a little bit about the two journey paths. I even think about my own journey path, right? Like 15 plus years ago now, I had gone out and I'd taken an evaluation. So we're a rep for Objective Management Group. It's the number one sales platform on the planet. Has been 2.5 million salespeople, right? So I first took this. I came through technical. I was an engineer by degree. I worked in the plant. I was a marketing product manager, all these things. I thought, I'm going to be great at sales, right? So I take the assessment. It's kind of like when an engineer takes a final and you're hoping for 30 or 40 or maybe 50%, out of 100 because the finals are hard. At least that was mine. But in general, you think about it, it's like, hey, I got that first evaluation back and it wasn't that great. And it was a nice humbling moment. But I think what was helpful for me is I understood what good looked like. And it's part of benchmarking. It's what we all do in organizations. We go out and benchmark. So I think a big problem in the sales world, if whether I'm an individual contributor or I'm a leader over a sales team or I'm a president who's running an organization, whatever it might be, it's often not knowing what good looks like. It's not having the right terminology. It's not having the right way to evaluate where the team is. And so we do a lot of stuff by gut. And in the sales world, so much of that, people talk about, well, I'm really good at parties, so therefore I'm going to be great at sales. And there's no correlation to that, by the way. So from an entry point, when I think about talking with sales people, whether it's a sales manager, a sales individual, the first questions often drive from, do you even know what good looks like? Has anybody told you? Have you done anything to recognize where we're trying to get? Because it's really hard to move anything if you don't have a vision of what good is. A definition of success. We talk about it with building teams. Like if I walked around an organization and said, do you know you had a good week? Most people couldn't answer that. Yeah, I know what a good week looks like. So the point of that is that when you start talking about sales, if I talk to an individual, it's kind of like, okay, am I at a grade school level, a high school level, a college, a pro level? And it doesn't really matter where I'm at on that journey. Like when I started the journey at lower end, because I never had any training. Nobody had shown me good process. I didn't even know what good looked like. But once you have that and you know it, now you have something to work for. You have something to work towards. And as an individual, whether it's sales management, leadership, or individual status, if I can know what that is, now I have a clear roadmap of where I'm trying to go. To me, that's where any organization, any individual wants to lean in. That's the starting point.
So let's talk about that. So one of the things you guys do really well is you support small businesses that are figuring out our next sales hire. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
So one of the classic issues, actually, you could go through and look at all the stats of like the worst screw up seat you can have is sales, right?
Worst screw up seat?
Yeah, if you put the wrong person in sales, the negative impact of the business often is scored much higher than it is in most other seats. No offense to operations or engineering and all the rest of it, but the impact that a bad salesperson has on your customer base, your revenue generation is far worse than most internal contributing team members. Like usually I can figure out pretty fast in operations if somebody isn't doing the right stuff, right? There's double checks and backups, but a lot of sales worlds, I've got an account manager running around by themselves somewhere and I have the very little understanding of what they're actually saying and doing in the field, right? And so it's one of the tougher seats that you have to make sure you do right. So if I'm going to approach the process for bringing a salesperson in, usually we follow a standard methodology. There's a number of books out there you can look at, but it really starts with, do I know what good looks like for the seat? And so there's an evaluation process. Questions like, what's the average sales dollar size, right? What is the type of people I'm selling to? Am I selling to a shop floor individual contributor? Am I selling to a CEO, right? What kind of sale do I have? Is it, hey, I come in with my product book, drop it on the table and said, what do you want to buy today? Or is it, I come in and I need to ask probing questions and consultatively look at pulling it out? So the first step is defining what the seat needs. We often will not think about it, and we'll just take, hey, this person's really good at sales, and we'll stick them in any seat, not thinking about what the seat is. So for example, I might take a really good hunter, business development person who loves slaying new logos and stick them in an account manager farmer seat where they have to sit and develop really deep relationships all day, and they fail, even though they're great at selling. So that first step is really understanding, what does the seat need? What's the profile? What's the fit? The second step is the cultural piece. And everybody talks about, I'm going to evaluate for culture. And so then they get into an interview and they've had a good cup of coffee that morning. They're feeling good because they've had a good morning. They just start softballing questions of the person that doesn't really actually ask any hard questions. Or they do the opposite. They've come up with some evaluation in 5 seconds, and then they basically slay them and they kill them before they even got started, right? So the point of that is how do I then look at what's going to be required from a cultural fit for my business? So that's usually the second thing that you got to do. The third thing you'll do is you'll start to look at, how do I position this seat? And there's a whole bunch of discussion around putting the dollars right on the table right out of the gate, which you should do, side topic. But how do I write
from like a compensation,
compensation,
or from like a
all that
quota, or
a compensation quota?
Sure.
I mean, you really want to be so transparent that says this is what's going to really suck about this job, right? I mean, I try to scare the crap out of people before they take the job, because I want them, as much as I can, and it can never be perfect, but as much as you can, give them an eyes wide open view, because one of the top reasons that people eject in the first 90 days is because someone falsified what the job was. They pulled out the sunshine pump and said, this is the most wonderful place to be. Someone gets in the first 2 weeks and they're like, well, this is not that. And so I think it's important to be that transparent, if you can, as much as you can, with those people. And so after you get through, step 1, hey, I've told you what the seat is. Step 2, we got a good cultural fit. Step 3 and 4 is really writing a good ad, understanding how to publish it to get to the right people. Step 5 then ends up being like, okay, then how am I going to evaluate? How am I going to look? How am I going to look at the individual coming in with a perspective that isn't biased based on my initial 5-second reaction to them? So putting in place like evaluations like Objective Management Group, people use other ones like DISC or 6 Working Genius, whatever that works for that seat. Having them take that, and then the last 3 steps be, okay, now I've had some secondary research to say this is kind of their self-evaluation of who they are. Does that align with what I have along with their resume? But then what am I doing from that initial screen? How am I talking to them without looking at them, without having bias, but maybe making that phone call for 10 minutes to screen, then doing an interview, and then finally, once we've made a decision, and what a lot of people don't do effectively at all is the onboarding piece. That's the last 8th step. And, very rarely do people do a 90-day onboarding plan. A lot of times it's 2 weeks running around having sign HR stuff and then saying, go knock yourself out. But actually having a longer term view of, how do I bring this person on effectively? So when we talk about the right process for hiring salespeople, it's making sure I'm checking all the right boxes, so I increase my predictive validity that I'm going to be successful with the person coming in. Because again, a bad hire is a really costly thing. And what people don't understand is, in the sales community, the stats are the stats. So 50% of salespeople are considered by stats in the weak category. It means they have a ton of training they need. 33% are in the bucket of, I can do standard sales stuff maybe, but I'm not really a seller, right? That's 33%. 11% are really good. They have all the skills, and only 6% are elite. So if you think about just your at-bat rate for people coming in, you're in that 17 percentile that are going to be good or elite. It's like bad baseball, right? Like, and so for that, if you don't have the right process to increase your predictions on good salespeople and coming in, you have a pretty low probability of actually hiring a really good one, which is why so many people turn salespeople so fast. It's also why sales leaders on average are turning like 18 months. So it's because people don't have a really robust process for bringing them in.
So the way I hear that, then there's a difference between your marketing sales funnel and you're talking about your recruiting and teammate onboarding funnel,
Yep.
and really all the steps involved to make sure you have the supply of the team necessary to do the job. It also sounds like you are advocating for the business owner or the leader to have a lot of their expectations documented and a structure and a system that actually is going to allow somebody to be successful. So all of your clients should have all of that in place first before they call you.
Not in place first, but yeah, thank you for that. So normally we're going to walk them through it, right? So because, if you're not hiring that seat, let's say you're a small organization, you have one salesperson,
Sure.
2, 3, whatever it is, you're not hiring salespeople that often. So there's not necessarily an expectation that you're going to have solve this process. I mean, part of it too is as leaders go through the process, they probably only in an organization have a limited number of seats that you actually need in that organization to be successful. And over time, as you have people come in and out of the organization, you start to develop some knowledge of what works and what doesn't. What type of people, what type of skills work in my business. So the benefit of documenting it is even if something doesn't work out, you're starting to also build up the muscle on what does and what doesn't work. And then you're modifying it for the next time that it comes in. But if you never take the time to baseline, if you have nothing to go back and look at, well, you're just rolling the dice again the next time, right? So you need that base to start building your muscle around how do I better hire? And in a lot of cases, so often people are like, hey, I just need a body. I just need a body. I'm exhausted. I just need a body. And they don't realize that the wrong body is actually counterproductive. You actually can go backwards. You're actually better off not hiring, in certain cases, the wrong body, because you end up spending all your time trying to coach and mentor because we feel bad. We hired them, so we feel bad, right? So we spend all this energy coaching and mentoring. So now are we not only not able to do our job, we're trying to help them do their job at a much slower pace than we could do it ourselves. And invariably, you're not getting anything done, right? So that's where the process methodology becomes really, really important as you're bringing people on and then getting better at it as you grow as an organization.
Would you say that is where you and your team want to spend most of your time, is the process for the hiring of a salesperson or the development after they're already in place?
So it's both. So the other end of the tandem is, okay, I've got salespeople. Right. And they're in wherever they are in their curve. They're in the 20th percentile or 30th or 80th, wherever they are. So whenever you evaluate a team, you're going to get a mix. You're going to get people on the high and the low end of the spectrum, like any team. And really, you have to look at that as an owner or a leader and say, there's an ROI. Do I have the time, energy, and capacity to do what I need to do to help that person through that? Am I willing to commit to helping that person grow? And I don't think a lot of leaders think about like what that commitment level is going to be for them. If I've got a 20th percentile person in my sales journey and I need to bring them to 70, are you willing as a leader, not only for your own training, because you probably don't know how to do it, so you got to learn yourself, but then pragmatically help them through that journey as well? And so when you evaluate existing teams, what's helpful is, so often when I'm in that sales management seat, it's kind of like mom and dad telling me what to do. I don't believe you because you're my boss, right? And so it's tough because a boss is coming in saying, I see these things are a problem, but they're like, the salesperson, they don't know what they're talking about. They've never schlepped a bag. They don't really get what I'm dealing with. They don't have to do what I have to do. And the benefit of when you look at a team, an existing team, and you evaluate them, well, it's their evaluation. It's a self-evaluation. So now, just from a positioning standpoint, if nothing else, I can, instead of being adversarial across the table, you need to do this better because you're not performing.
Sure.
To be sitting alongside somebody, which is, by the way, the much kinder way to approach it anyway. I sit alongside somebody and say, okay, look, I don't care where you are right now. Like, I'm willing to go from 20 to 70 with you, right? We know what 70 looks like. We know we're at 20 right now. We know what gaps are that we have to fill in. Cool. Are you ready to do that? Because it's not me anymore. You've self-evaluated, this is where you're at in your journey, and I'm good with it, and I'm willing to walk with you. Are you willing to commit Are you willing to work, the mornings and the nights and do those things you got to do to get better? Are you willing to become the college ball player that wants to be pro and is willing to put in the extra work? Because I can't do that for you. So the importance of the internal team looking at that and evaluating is, can I set up that internal team with enough self-awareness of where they are in their journey, and again, give them the skills and the process tools over the course of time, if they're committed, to get them where they need to be. And the fundamental thing, and that's where it's interesting when you look at Objective Management Group, you look at something like commitment. Everybody thinks, well, I work hard. I was put in 60 hours a week. That's not commitment. Commitment isn't work ethic. Commitment is, I realize I'm aware, I got a gap. So, by the way, getting everybody aware is why you do the evaluation up front, because if they're not aware, they're not going to fix anything. So you have to get awareness first. And then once you even have awareness, then there's a real question. Am I motivated? Am I willing to do the things I got to do differently, uncomfortably, willing to change to get better? And if I'm not willing to do that, then all the process, training, all that stuff, doesn't matter, right? Because they're not willing to do anything. If I can get through awareness and commitment, which it's kind of like how many sign up to the gym membership on Jan 1, and then actually, what do we say, the first 2 weeks, most are out. If I'm unwilling to continue on January, February, March, April with that program, first I need to know what the program is. Step 3, I have a process. I know what I need to get better at. I'm going to go work it. I have a plan. Step 4 is I'm willing to work the plan. And eventually step 5 is it becomes part of my DNA. But like most training and learning, 10,000 hours to become an expert, am I willing to put in the work as an individual, as a manager, to really get better, to transform my own skills and process, and then actually use it to affect others and help other people?
So Jeff, what you're proposing sounds like such an intentional and focused investment into the sales team or into the sales hiring process. This is an incredible amount of bandwidth that an individual has to have to be focused and laser focused on this part of their business. How do you keep them on track?
So it's ironic. So going back to the art of delegation discussion we talked about earlier, if you actually evaluate almost any seat in any organization, and you just map out their tasks. Okay, what are the tasks you work on daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly? Depending on the individual, but most cases, you're somewhere between 20 and 35 unique tasks, right? Just based on the way they process. So, okay, I've got 25 to 35 tasks, whatever it might be. Okay, here's what they are. I work on them X number of hours at X frequency. It all rolls up to an average of 45 to 50 hours a week or whatever the number is. But if you look at that task list and you look at the hour bandwidth that you spend, 40% of those tasks on average are in that ballpark, 40 to 50, are going to be administrative tasks. And in sales teams, it's usually worse. Salespeople start laughing, I got to fill in CRM, or I got to make meetings, prep for meetings. I've got to schedule meetings. I got to, all this stuff that's administrative stuff. I got to answer these incoming, emails and all that. So you think about, one of the biggest challenges for anybody in any seat, and this goes into a whole leadership topic I won't go into, but the whole idea is how do you focus? It's kind of like when EOS talks about rocks, and invariably most organizations create 7 every quarter, right? And so the old rule is if you do one thing, you get 1 done. You do 2, you get 1 done. You get 20, you get 0 done. So the point is that if you can work the process of how do I focus? Well, invariably, like any sort of lean process, there's usually 20 to 30% of the stuff you're doing, you can literally just stop doing. And when I talk to people, our team talks to people, they're like, all right, let's get the list. Okay, boom. Hey, I got this report. I send it out once a month. It takes me a day and a half to put together. I said, just don't send it next month. They're like, what? I said, just don't send it. Let's see what happens. Does anybody respond? Does anybody care? Do you even know what they do with it? And the answer is like, no, I don't have any idea. Well, let's just not send it and see if nobody responds, then just stop doing it, right? But you have so much of that goes on in the day. We naturally assume that everything we do is super important. So if I actually would give them the same list, I said, mark everything that's important. almost all of it gets marked important. But if I talk to their peers and said, is this important? Then it's like half or less, right? So it's like, no, we don't think any of this stuff is important. And then when you actually get into those discussions, if you sit down and really actually look at the function stuff you do during the day and you get rid of all the noise, there's usually the bandwidth sitting there already. And if it isn't, if I'm in an executive position and I still have to actually execute all this stuff, well, then the question is, why are you doing it? I mean, the whole point, if you're a president or an owner, you hire people so that you don't have to do stuff, right? That's the whole point of anybody on the team, is so that you can give stuff to them so that you can focus on the stuff they can't do. And so for that sake, it really comes back to the focus. If I don't have the capacity, I don't have the bandwidth. We talk about sales managers. They should be spending 60% plus of their time coaching, mentoring, or holding people accountable. So if they're coach/seller and they're spending all their time selling and not even helping their team, they're likely going to fail. If they're not interested in coaching or holding people accountable for various reasons, their team is not growing. So really it comes back to, what if I want to focus, if I need the bandwidth, I really need to think about, what am I uniquely doing that either can't be given to somebody else down the food chain or in the team? And what am I uniquely called to do in these seats that nobody else can do, that if I don't do it, the business doesn't move forward?
We use a tool frequently in our groups talking about how if there's a vision that's big enough, one of the things that's going to have to come into play to support it. If the vision is like the keystone of an arch, one of the things that's going to support it is the magic ability of the few. And how do you protect the magic moments of the few that allows for the vision to be possible? Because often our best and highest use gets obliterated with admin redundancy.
Almost always.
So I'm curious for you. Let's do it this way. Someone who is wrestling with some of these challenges and they're thinking about hiring another salesperson, what do you wish people would think about before they call you and your team?
Yeah. So it's, when you actually look at any seat, and sales is obviously a key one, but when you look at any seat, I think you're first starting to start with, what's the definition of good? What does done look like? What does good look like? What do I actually need to happen? Instead of having 10 metrics, it's like going back to integrator, cash flow. If cash flow is positive, going in the right direction, we're good. All other thing is noise. Cash flow is going in the right direction, I'm good, right? Or risk, maybe as a second one. But from a salesperson standpoint, like, what do I actually need them to accomplish? How would I define? So start thinking in your head what good looks like. Is a good week 15 calls on site? What am I accomplishing on those meetings? What do I need them to come back with? Is it just rotodialing, 100 calls a month, a week, whatever, a day, whatever it is? What do I need them to accomplish? And just think about it pragmatically. I get questions all the time. Hey, I need a new website. Yes, we build websites. We can help you. But they're like, why do you need a new website? Well, I need leads. Okay, why do you need leads? Well, I want revenue. Great. How much do you need? Well, I need $1 million. Great. What's your average account size? Well, it's $250,000. Sweet. What's your close rate? 50%. You need 8. Okay. So if you need 8, then do we need a website? Do we need to have this like rotodial campaign? I mean, maybe if that's all I need literally 4 new accounts. Do I even need a new salesperson? Do I need to take a salesperson I have and rip the 30-40% of the admin off their plate so they can literally go make 8 calls, right? And so I think when you think pragmatically about what you're actually trying to accomplish, what are you actually trying to solve, give yourself some bandwidth to think about that first. And then when you enter in the conversation, when you start to think about what does this business need to grow, it becomes more clear. Either I have a sales team that isn't capable of doing this growth function that I need. Okay, well, maybe I need a new skill. I can't get it in the current team. They don't have the skill, or I don't have the patience to wait a couple of years to give them the skill. Or maybe it's just a process problem. They're at bat close rates so poor. If I would literally take their close rate from 10 to 20%, I would double my revenue. I wouldn't even need to hire any salespeople. So I think if you think really pragmatically about what am I trying to accomplish, it makes the whole discussion much easier, so that when someone like us gets, because I'm going to ask you the questions anyway, right? So when someone like us gets involved, it's like, now I have a vision. And really, as a key leader, as a president, your responsibility is the vision. So take some time to think about that. And yes, you might need some help. You don't know what questions asked. That's okay. Then that we can get involved in that too. But if I was going to do one thing up front, I'd really think about, where do I want to take this business? It's the why. Why do I want to grow? What do I want to grow in? That's really where they should be starting.
I really appreciate this. Jeff, we work with business leaders all the time who are wrestling with exactly that. And they're starting that conversation around, where am I actually trying to get to?
Yeah.
And can I then reverse engineer, where are my bottlenecks along that path? It's been really cool to see what you've done with a client who we shared, who he needed help hiring a salesperson. You guys did a tremendous job. And then when it came to stabilizing that organization, you had an operations person ready to go that could really stabilize a challenging situation. It's been great to see that. If some of the folks who are listening or watching this want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to engage with you and your team?
Yeah, just reach out. My email, phone, whatever it is. Michelle on their team will connect you. And then it's just a matter of having a discussion, right? Like, what are you trying to solve? And if we can't help, we'll likely know somebody who can. But yeah, if they want to reach out, just reach out to me or my team.
And what's the best website to find you at?
So www.thenstep.com. That's got all the contact information as well. And if in these videos you want to link in social media profiles or any of that, you can do that as well and get a hold of us.
I would love to get you involved with that. You guys have done a tremendous job, so thank you. Last question that I always end with is, what should I be asking you about that I haven't yet?
I think the big thing, we talk about sales and we've talked a little bit about different functions, but I always think about it in terms of, president, CEO, owner health, right? Part of the reason why that I do what I do is because I see so much exhaustion, going back to exhaustion. And what I don't think there's enough communication around, enough conversation around, is the impact that a leader has in their universe, right? If I'm a president, I'm an owner, I'm not just impacting my team members. I'm impacting my team members' families and their friends and their communities and all these other things. It's just why I focus on that leader, because if you can impact the one, you can impact all. And so I don't think there's enough conversation around the weight of leadership. People talk about lonely at the top, all these different things, but really what those key leaders are wrestling with. And a lot of times they're lonely, they need a friend, like they're not sure what to do next, they got too much on their plate, there's all these constraints. And so I just, my shout out is to those that are struggling in that. You don't need to. There's nothing new under the sun. Everybody's been through a lot of the same stuff. Just reach out. A lot of times people want to be a DIYer. I get it. I've remodeled 2 of my own homes. Like, I understand. But you don't need to, I would encourage you, don't go through and the same pain that so many other people have done, and just look for people that go alongside that can accelerate your learning, get you to, through something that's difficult, because we need those owners, those presidents, those CEOs to be healthy, to create thriving businesses, to create thriving cultures. That's what really impacts so much of what we've got going on. And so just don't struggle. You don't need to.
I would be remiss if I didn't say that the Creative Business Council is focused on creating a space that is safe, it is trusting, but there's also a very high expectation to deliver. The peer groups that we put together are all about those leaders that say, hey, this is what's really important. I need to get this done. The council then turns around and says, great, when are you going to get it done? And they'll hound people every month until those things are done. And so we're really careful with the types of leaders we bring into that space to say, if you're going to take up airtime and a seat at this table, you better be ready to perform, because the group wants to see you be successful, and that might be uncomfortable. So I love that you're calling out it's lonely at the top, not always a great space to have a sounding board for people like that. But that is what CBC is focused on. It's really, really good to be with you, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Jeff, thank you for coming on to CBC Talks, and I look forward to seeing what you guys do next.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
If this conversation is resonating with you, It's probably because you're the kind of leader we built the Creative Business Council for. Our peer groups are designed for owners and leaders who want more than just ideas. They want accountability, clarity, and the chance to sit at the table with people facing the same challenges. The Creative Business Council is looking for leaders like you. Sit in on one of our peer groups and see the difference for yourself. Just click the link in the description.